You have to click got it on your screen so that big picture goes
I
away.
think that's on your screen, Mark.
Uh, I guess we all have to say got it. Yeah, that's right. That's by law, we all have to acknowledge that, yes, we understand it's being recorded. If anybody doesn't want to be recorded, now's the time to get off the call. So, Justin, recently, this is a couple weeks after the 17th or the 16th, uh, state law mandates that all listing agents disclose to their selling clients how listing commissions are handled in the state of Ohio. The changes are related to two things. One, no longer on the multiple listing service, which is the service we use to find homes for buyers, will there be any commission listed for the buyer brokerage or the buyer's agent. So we're acknowledging on this particular piece of paper how you and I are going to agree to handle those commissions. So, Justin, as a seller, you're going to experience basically 4 expenses to transfer your property to a buyer. Typically, every seller experiences all of these expenses. It's been going on this way for decades, and it will continue for decades into the future unless something changes. Those 4 expenses are these. 1, a home warranty. You're in luck because Red One, exclusive to Red One, offers a 210 home warranty. That's the name of the company, to all of our selling clients. It protects you during the time that we have the house listed, and it covers things like something happening with your furnace. If you would like to have your air conditioner covered, I will gladly pay the $50 for you to have that coverage. All of your kitchen appliances are covered. I forget whether the washer and dryer is, so I'm gonna leave it out. And your electrical and plumbing are covered. It's like any other home warranty. If something were to come up during the time we have your home listed, you'd get a hold of me. I would encourage you to contact the home warranty company. And for a service fee of $100, if it's something that's covered, they'd come out. If they cannot repair the item, then they will replace it for the same service fee. So it's a really good thing that agents like myself who work with Red One offer all of their selling clients for free. That could also be something that when we get into a negotiation situation where the buyer's agent and the buyer are asking you for a home warranty, I could negotiate on your behalf because the value of that warranty is about $700. I could negotiate on your behalf and you could say yes to that warranty, and I could negotiate that the buyer pay half of it and you pay half of it because it already exists. So we might have a good little negotiating tactic right up front before we even start. So that's one expense, and it's negotiable. It's free to you. If it never get asked for by the buyer or you say no, there's no expense to you. Second thing, it's called an owner's title policy. It's a fancy term for the following situation. The title company who will handle the closing for your home when we put it in contract and successfully close on it, they will search back up to 50 years and just ensure that every time your home has transferred owners, even when it was a piece of property and there was no home on it, if it's that of that age, they'll make sure that that title is clear all the way back through there. One of the examples I can give you, I mean, I know this is getting into the weeds a little bit, but I want you to understand this, is if a couple in the past were divorced and then one of the spouses sold the home and the other spouse did not sign off on what are called dower rights, that would be what's called a cloud or an encumbrance on the title. The title company would find that and make sure it's clear and give you an insurance policy to ensure that you wouldn't be on the hook for the ownership interest that that ex-spouse had in your home currently, because it carries through to today if it's not caught. So that insurance policy is called an owner's title policy. One was purchased for you by the seller when you bought this. So that's another expense. Your third expense is going to make perfect sense to you, and I know it's a hard subject to talk about, but it's your property taxes. Your property taxes are, in all likelihood, 12 months in arrears. They're usually paid through your payment by your lender. The bill gets sent to your lender and they pay it on your behalf. You have a thing called escrows. So when you make your house payment, it's your principal, interest, property taxes, and homeowners insurance. There's another item out there, but we'll leave that off for now. It's called private mortgage insurance. You may or may not have it, but it also gets paid. Well, the last property tax bill was due in June of this year, and it was for the first half of 2023. So it's 12 months in arrears. So the next property tax bill that the buyer's going to get is going to be in December, because your home will be long sold by then and you'll be on to your next home. I'll help you with that one. That's going to be for a period of time, which is the second half of last year, and they didn't live here. You did. So you will give a credit to the buyer from the date of the last tax bill your lender paid on your behalf up through the date of closing to the buyer. That will be debited to you. You don't write a check to anybody. It comes out of your sales proceeds. So that's an expense to you associated with transferring your property to a buyer. The last expense, as you well know, is commissions. I'm a listing agent. My brokerage lists houses for thousands of people. That's how we earn a living. What is typical, and it's negotiable in this market, is 6%. I would like to encourage you to allow our company to split that with buyers' brokerages and their buyers' agents to incentivize them to bring us their very best offers. So if it's a total of 6 that you're willing and you negotiate to pay to my listing brokerage, I'd like to advise you to allow us to split that with the buyer brokerages and the buyer's agents that bring us offers. You, by the way, don't have to pay a buyer's agent's commissions out of that at all. It has never been the law that you've had to, and it's still now in writing that it's the law. You don't have to, and they've always been negotiable. I'm just giving you what's typical. You know what I'm going to be doing on your behalf: professional photography and videography, staging services we've already completed. I'm going to do a lot of pre-marketing through social media and ensure that the entire world knows about this property. I'm going to help you confirm all the showings that'll be coming up for your house and ensure that you're aware of that. I will discuss every offer with you in detail that we get to ensure you get the most money in the least period of time with the least stress on you. So for that, we charge a listing commission. Justin, is there anything we've gone over so far that you thought we would? Is there anything we didn't go over that you thought we would so far? Do you understand what I'm talking about?
Yeah, Mark, I understand completely. I think you covered pretty much everything I was concerned about. I have been seeing a lot in the news lately about this NAR ruling, and I was just kind of confused by the whole thing.
Yeah.
Are commissions required, or is there a set commission price, or how does that work?
That's a great question. Commissions have never been by law set. That's against what's called the Sherman Antitrust Act. So commissions have always been negotiable. I can recall a time back in the 80s when commissions for listing houses were 10%, 8%. It's whatever the listing agent negotiated with their particular selling client. Typically in this market, it is 6. That's negotiable. And keep in mind that our brokerage would like your permission to share that with the buying brokerage, 50-50, 3 and 3. But that you don't have to pay a buyer's brokerage anything. My key there for you to keep in mind would be, I would be more concerned if I were you. Now, this is not my home. I live up in Sunbury. I'm not going to sell my home. We're going to certainly die there. And I would probably actually say that. I am more concerned for you on what you net on your house. So what we can sell it for minus these expenses we're going through, what you net is what's critical. And if we can incentivize the buyer brokerages and their agents to bring us bigger and better offers that make it easier for you, less stress, and get you the money that you would net, I would think that that's what we want to be focused on.
Yeah, that sounds good to me. Would there be, but at the same time, I want to certainly make sure that I get as much money as I can from the sale. So would it hurt me to, would it hurt the way that buyers view my listing, or would it hurt me or hinder me if I refused to offer compensation for a buyer's agent?
That's a great question. Let's put it this way. We're going to list your house, and just envision this. There'll be other houses that are listed in your community at the same time, right? This is a great community. I love this neighborhood. I'm familiar with it. I've helped other clients here. So your house would be on the market at the same time that their houses would be on the market. And while it's against the law for the multiple listing service, that's the service we use to list houses, to advertise the commission, it is not against the law for agents to augment their listings by, for example, on the for sale sign, which I would highly recommend you allow me to do if you decide to offer it. I can put that you're offering a commission. I can actually put the amount on the for sale sign. So if you don't offer it and these other agents and their sellers decide to, that could put you at a disadvantage. Now, I don't mean that agents won't show your house because of it, because we're not allowed to do that. Buyers agents, if their buyer's interested in your house, they have to show it. Human nature might take over, but I would think that if a buyer's agent and a buyer comparing your house to another house, same price, you're not offering one and they are, there might be a little bit more activity on another house that may be offering one. But again, the decision is entirely up to you.
Well, just to ask out of curiosity, when I bought this house, I used a buyer's agent, and I don't remember paying them commission. If I were to refuse to offer buyer's agent commission, would that hurt the ability of the buyers to obtain financing for my house?
I'm going to answer it in a way that does not directly answer your question, but I'm going to put it a different way. I can assure you that buyer's agents that make offers to you, whether you're offering a commission or not, are going to ask to be paid. And Justin, I mean, you're a good friend of Steve and Beth, who referred you to me. I earn a living about half the time representing buyers and about half the time representing sellers. And as a buyer's agent, I can assure you, I will be asking for commissions in all my offers. And I believe the offers we get on your house will also include an ask for commissions. So that didn't answer your question directly. I can only guess at the answer that, or the question that you're asking me. It is in all probability the case that some buyers may not be able to afford to even finance the amount that they would like to make sure that their buyer's agent receives in their financing. So yes, it could have that effect, but I think the way the first case study that I gave you is much more probable than the second, which is every offer you get, the buyer's agent's going to ask to be paid because it's how they feed their family.
Okay, so on the offers that are going to be incoming on this property, it's likely that we're going to see the commission amount for the buyer's agent asked for right in the offer. Is that correct?
Yes, it's so much fun for you to try to role play and not sound like a you're calling it the property and the office. It's just
My house. Sorry, my house. Sorry.
Sorry about the segue. No, it's just it's way easier for me to role play because I'm just being me. You're trying to be a seller, and that's tough to do. Say it again because I was just whacked out by how fun.
Well, so you're saying when offers come in on my house, they're likely going to be asking for that commission anyways. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct. You're going to be asked to pay it, and it's negotiable because it's always been negotiable.
Okay. Well, I'll tell you what, if we can, like you said, the bottom line, what I walk away with, my net profit is what's most important to me. And if you can get me what an estimated figure of what we previously discussed of what you thought my house would sell for, and that net to seller sheet you sent me, then I have no problem offering a commission to a buyer's broker.
Well, interestingly enough, you're going to find that when we go back over that sheet, and you can take a look at it tonight after I leave, because I'm going to go back to my office and send you these listing documents so we can get rolling. I presumed, or it included payment for both a buyer's agent and for our brokerage. So that net that you were happy with 15 or 20 minutes ago, you'll be happy with because it's not changing.
Okay, great.
It's only going to go up.
All right. Well, when are the pictures getting taken?
I'll get those scheduled for blah, blah, blah.
All right, guys, that was really great. Mark took a deep dive on that. I tried to drag that conversation out as much as I could and ask some of the questions that I see here in front of me on this obligation sheet, and some that came to my head as well. I thought that went great, Mark. I thought the way that you approached it really eliminated a lot of the questions before I had a chance to answer them. Carla Kieran in the chat said, "This is so good. Love it. Easily understood." Thanks, Carla.
Let's go ahead and really put a pin on what you just said, Justin. Guys, the reason why I think it's important to take your seller down the road of these are the typical expenses, these four that a seller experiences when they transfer their property to a buyer in this market. It's been going on this way for decades and will continue for decades into the future, is because you're saying it in a way that it doesn't use the word commission. It doesn't say cost. It talks about transferring their property. It talks about this market. All of those buzzwords are in there, and it does truly comes very naturally for you to say, Justin, these are the expenses the typical seller in this market experiences when they transfer their property to a buyer. These are the, you can add to that. You can say, these are the expenses that the seller that sold the home to you experienced, and these are the ones that you're going to experience, and they're these four. And then when you break them down, you start with the simplest one, right? It's a home warranty. Cheap.
Can we touch on that for a second, Mark? I'm going to be completely honest with you. I wasn't aware that Red One was offering those 210 home warranties with any of our listings. How does that work?
When any Red One agent, because the 210 platform is now connected to the Red One platform, and any Red One agent that lists a house in the Columbus Board of Realtors MLS, 210 gets notified and they immediately put a home warranty on it for free.
Matt Beers, do you have a question?
No, sorry. I was just going to say, I listed a home. I had forgot about the 210 warranty, and I got an email right after I listed the home that the house was under the warranty.
Yeah. Yeah, they notify you. They let you, once she puts, well, she did her presentation, we've forgotten. Once you put it on the MLS and they cover it, they notify you via email.
So Michelle Shriver, her question in the chat is, what if a seller asks for commission to be lowered, example 4 to 5% instead of 6? Mark, would you like me to be a stubborn seller?
Sure, go ahead and ask the question.
Okay. Well, Mark, I understand what you're saying, but I'm just really concerned about paying another person's real estate agent, to work for them.
That's not her question, by the way.
What?
You're changing her question. You can go ahead and do that, but we already went over that. She said,
okay.
What if a seller, there you go.
So Mark, what if I only want to offer 4 to 5% for commission instead of what has been typical of 6%?
Justin, that's a great question. As I mentioned earlier, listing negotiation or listing commissions are completely negotiable. And as in all likelihood, I'm going to assist you in purchasing your new home. Can I get that commitment from you? I'm going to help you buy your new home.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. Since I'm going to be paid on that side of things, I will gladly, on my brokerage's behalf, agree to list this property for 5%, because that's what you'd like to negotiate it to. And I want you to know something, though, about that 5%. I want to encourage the other 9,900 agents out there to bring you the very best offer. So with your permission, when we fill this out, I'm going to put 2% for my selling brokerage, which is what the commissions that come to me, a portion of those come to me. And I'm going to ask your permission to allow the other 3% to go to the buyer's agent, because they're not involved in this negotiation. And it's not fair to them to ask them to split 5%, 2.5 and 2.5. And I just don't want to be involved in devaluing the hard work that buyer's agents put into making offers, and certainly don't want to devalue my work, but I'm going to be making money when I help you buy your home. So I will gladly do that. And besides that, you're a referral from Steve and Betty, and I think that's only fair. So I'll gladly do that.
to break away from the role play for a second, that's a great approach to this. As Mark and I were discussing earlier today, a lot of the clients that I help on the buy and sell side at the same time, I typically am already probably offering that discount up front in a lot of those cases. So if this comes up,
I would just not do it up front. I would allow them to negotiate you down to it. But go ahead, Justin. Sorry to interrupt.
no, that's okay. And everybody's different. And that's just the way that historically that I've done it with clients that I value, that I'm helping in two transactions at the same time. So that I thought that was a great segue into that. Does anybody on the call have any other questions that they think might come up in a role in a listing presentation or a listing appointment that we haven't already discussed here on this Zoom? And feel free to shout it out. Feel free to type it in the chat, just like Michelle did. We'll do this for a couple more minutes, and then we really want to dive into the numbers on this sheet as well.
I have a question.
Go ahead, Brandon.
So if I'm the seller and especially if it's my first time doing this, and I hear Mark say it's totally negotiable, well then, I mean, what could stop? I mean, I guess the seller from saying, okay, well, can we do 1%, 2%? I mean, I hear there's this one company called the 1%ers or something like that who, do these transactions for 1%. So could we do something along those lines?
Okay, so I'm not going to role play with you, Brandon. I'm just going to give you my heartfelt thoughts. We are human beings and we want to cross bridges before we come to them. So, and you're good enough, skill set good enough to do this. Be way more presumptive about your part in this discussion. Do not allow that thought process to take over, and then I will answer the questions if you ask it in the role playing. Do not allow your mind to go there. I have never had a selling client ask me to work for 1% ever one. So that's a bridge too far even to consider. I have had selling clients ask me to work for 3. So let me give you the answer that I gave them. And that is this. Well, Brandon, you would like me to list your property. You know all of the steps that we're going to take to go through this. And again, this is that presumptive part coming back because I so much want to just change gears and say, how can we possibly envision a selling client asking us to work for less when we've spent the last hour and a half telling them all the things we're going to do? And guys, I pay for the photography and videography. I don't know about you. I pay for that and I make sure my client knows it. It's my time on social media when I'm blowing their house up all over the place. And 2 weeks after I list it, they could Google their address and find it on dozens of websites. It's my time. My time is valuable. My efforts on their behalf is valuable. So after you have made all of these steps to rightfully, truthfully provide your value, if I had a client ask me to list a house for 3%, my answer would be, you understand, Justin, that I'm going to be splitting that with a buyer. I'm asking you to allow my brokerage to split that with a buyer's agent because they're going to ask me to do that anyway. If you say that you want me to list it for 3% and that is all you're going to pay the listing brokerage and not offer a buyer's agency commission, understand that you're going to get offers that include the ask for that. So we're going to end up being back here anyway. So if I agree to list it for 5, the other agent's going to ask for 3. I'm going to take 2. That's what I asked you to do earlier. You're now thinking 4. I'm going to take 1. The other agent's going to take 3. If that's the value you place on this service, I have no option but to say yes, because you're very important to me. I'm humbled every time one of my past clients refers somebody else to me, and I will work just as hard to get you the most money in the least period of time with the least stress on you for 1%. Why would I say no to a referral? I had nothing to begin with, but I will again hammer home the fact But the likelihood of that happening to you is not very great when you're working with Sphere. Now, you might take a different approach. And if they say 4, you say yes. And then you ask them, can you split that? And they say yes. And you put 2 and 2. Guys, just because I run my business the way I do doesn't mean you should run your business that way at all. We just have to recognize the message we're sending to the overall community of both agents and the buying and selling public, that we as agents are willing to continue to devalue our services. You mentioned that dude that's willing to work for 1%. That's an example of somebody who's willing to devalue all of us. I'm simply not willing to do that. But if you get asked, negotiate it.
And just to compound on that a little bit, in my experience, and you guys may have seen them on the MLS, or maybe even done transactions with them. In my experience, the sell for 1% broker, they put that 1% effort into. They're listing the property on a base level with almost no communication, poor pictures, poor marketing. That 1% really reflects in the value that they bring to those transactions as well, in my experience, based on deals that I've done and things that I've seen on the MLS as well. So
it's a really good side note. There's also the Joan Elflins of the world who will list it on the MLS for $500. I don't see her surviving through this, because she can no longer advertise 3% to a buyer's agent. So I'm not sure what she's going to do now that she can't advertise it. She could advertise it in the other ways, but by then, cat's out of the bag. Anyway, Brandon, I hope that was helpful to kind of step back from it and say, build your value. The likelihood of you being asked the question is not very great. When you are, negotiate, rebuild your value again, and then agree. I will absolutely take a listing for 1%. I didn't have anything to begin with. And 1% of the average listing price on the MLS of $335,000 is $3,335 I didn't have a day ago. I'll take it.
Brandon says in the chat, you got it. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Let's get into these numbers and we can finish up with questions. Yep. We're going to run out of time. So Justin, you want to go through how people fill this out?
Yeah, absolutely. So here we are on page 1, still down at the bottom of page 1. We come to the juicy part: realtor fees and compensation policy. Seller acknowledges there are no standard compensation rates and that compensation in this agreement is fully negotiable and not set by law. They really hammer that home in this document about 4 or 5 times. You'll see it again. If during the term of this listing contract, seller's property is sold or exchanged to anyone, or broker produces a buyer ready, willing, and able to purchase the property on the above terms and conditions, the seller shall pay compensation to brokerage as follows. So guys, if you haven't seen this document yet, A reflects your commission or the listing brokerage compensation. The way that I'm filling these out is here. We're doing a percentage base. Let's assume that that you've done a great job at the listing presentation and that they've agreed to the 6%, 3 to the listing brokerage, 3 to the buying brokerage. If that's the case, we're going to put a 3 here under section 1. If for some chance it's a flat fee, that amount would go here. For section 2, this pertains to if the buyer is not represented. So this is a buyer not represented by an agent. And in this spot, we are 4%. I'm sorry, 5% here. So that means that you're gonna now. Why is it 5%? It's because even if the even if the buyer is unrepresented, you are likely still going to have to do a majority of the work for their side of the deal. You represent the best interest of the seller. You have a fiduciary responsibility to them. But if a buyer, we really want that other agent on the other side, because if a buyer is coming into this with no agent, they're going to have no clue what to do. They're going to need a lot of explanation about the documents. They're going to need their hand held a lot during the transaction, which is why this is in here. So what this section number 2 does at the bottom of page 1, it clearly defines what the commission is going to be in different scenarios. So under A, section 1, that's our side. Under A, section 2, if the buyer isn't represented, it goes there, 5%. Again, there's a flat fee section there if you charge flat fees. I certainly don't. I don't really know anybody that does. Any questions on that portion of the document? Again, that only pertains to the listing brokerage compensation. Scott Hoffman says the and or is where Mike Hall recommended admin fees or transactional fees. The and, not sure if you wanted to avoid. I don't
yeah.
think I was supposed to read that out loud, but
He actually is looking into having the and part taken out because that's confusing. Mike Hall's looking into taking and out. So it's gonna, Scott, what it'll probably come down to is you are charging a percentage or you're charging a dollar fee. There won't be an and or in there.
thanks for bringing that up, Scott. That does,
Got it. Yeah.
now that you say that, Mark, and Scott brings that up, that does pose kind of a weird question. If that's where the transactional fee of $249 or whatever you charge goes, why is the or there?
Exactly. That's why he's looking into, I think he's waiting for that to become an issue before he just does something with it, because it does open the door for you to negotiate that admin fee in there right now.
Well, if it were me personally, when it comes to the admin fee, I'm likely gonna this is just me, and Mike Hall might disagree, Mark might disagree. I'm likely gonna include that in the remarks section here at the bottom of the contract.
Yep.
If I have a transactional fee, if you're part of rev share, or if you've always charged a transactional fee, you're definitely gonna want to add that. If it were me personally, that and or makes me a little bit nervous. Like, what triggers the and or the or. If it was me personally, I'd probably put it in the remarks box at the bottom of the contract for now. But I follow Mike Hall's word. Him and Mark are gospel, so we'll wait to hear on that. Okay, moving on to section B, buyer brokerage compensation. In the addition to the amount above, the seller further agrees to pay brokerage an additional fee for an offer of compensation to any cooperating buyer broker in the amount of, again, if we're assuming this is a 6% commission, split 3 and 3, this is where the other 3% would go for the buyer's agent. Now, let's go back to that last question. What would the, Mark, and this is a question for you, I'm genuinely curious about it.
You'd put nothing in there. That would be a part of their offer.
Okay. And section 2, if an agent of the brokerage represents both buyer and seller as a dual agent, the percentage of the sales price is X, which me personally, I'm putting 4 here. That's if I'm working as a dual agent representing both buyer and seller as a unbiased third party. I'm going to have work on both sides of that, so my commission is going to drop to a 4. Now, I traditionally have always done this. It's never been outlined in our listing documents before, but had a great listing in Grove City where I had the buyer and seller. I've only done dual agency 2 or 3 times of the 100 transactions that I've been a part of. But each time I've done that, I have offered to lower my commission to 4%. That's just always kind of been my mindset. And do you want to speak to that at all, Mark?
I think it's fun that it's ironic that it naturally levels out to 2% for you as a buyer's agent and 2% for you as a listing agent. It's that, again, that shared feeling that we want to get, guys. That just happened to work out that way. I know it's just ironic. It doesn't make too much sense, but you're sharing the commission again. It's just with yourself, 2 and 2.
Question.
Go ahead, Les. Did you have a question?
Yeah. So how wouldn't we try to flip or try to, do a dual agent if the buyer came in and said, hey, yeah, I want to buy this, but I don't have an agent? Like, how would we end up not, like, why would we end up with the scenario we talked about before with the 5% versus the dual agency? Or has anyone ever experienced that?
Yeah, I'll give you the best answer I have, and then I'll shut up and let other people give their answers. I have been a dual agent once. Justin has been more successful at it than I have. It was probably because my thoughts were not in the right place. I knew going into it, or felt going into it, that one or the other of these clients was going to think at some point during the transaction that I was not doing my job because I represented them both. And yes, it did happen. And yes, the deal did terminate. Since that date, I have never been a dual agent again. I have all of my buying clients for my listings sign the agency disclosure section that says, you understand you're representing your interest. I admit freely say, because I disclose, I've agreed with my client that if I bring the agent, my commission will be reduced. And I am now disclosing to you that that could be a positive thing for both my client and for you. And that's all I say. I don't talk about price, because as a dual agent, or excuse me, as an agent representing the seller and treating the customer honestly and fairly, I cannot disclose anything to that particular buyer. That is my only answer, Brandon, to you. And Mike Hall and Ken Fairchild do not like it when I say that. Justin, you may answer the rest of it.
Yeah, well, I guess I would like to propose a scenario here. And guys, we might run a couple minutes over here. If we do, and you need to jump off, feel free to. What would happen, Mark? And I've never had this happen, which is why I'm asking. What would happen if your listing client, your selling client, was uncomfortable with you becoming a dual agent? Would that be a scenario where the buyer would be unrepresented?
In that case, they've given you not a legal instruction to not be a dual agent, but they've certainly given you an instruction and that might fall under obedience, could fall under loyalty. You're exactly right. It's not a comfortable situation, guys. You worked hard to get that listing long before you met this buyer. And for me to then start to have my moral compass start to spin and say, well, I can make some extra money, less, no offense, your question's a good one. I can make an extra 1% if I can just convince both people to let me represent them both. I don't want to go there. I would just go directly to 4%, help the buyer understand that I'm going to represent the seller only. Don't tell me anything you don't want the seller to know, because I will tell them. And I will let my seller know that you're unrepresented and that the agency disclosure will dovetail with that, and everybody's happy. You want to get an attorney, you can. If you want to get an agent, you can. By the way, that would be smart. If you
right, and it sounds like in the past, Mark, when you've been presented with this situation of dual agency, you've likely referred that other buyer out to an agent on your team or at your brokerage.
No. To your specific question, no. And to your more generic question, no. I have advised every buyer from the date of that terminated contract forward that I'm going to represent the seller only. You're going to represent yourself and your interest. I'll treat you fairly and honestly. I'm going to be doing all the work for both parties, all the paperwork. I'll assist you in any way that I can that's fair and honest. And I'm going to reduce my commissions as a result of it. And that's where I leave it, because it gives the right message, which is true. And it also lets them know, well, maybe I can make an offer on this that's less than asking. By the way, that's never happened, but neither here nor there. I just don't want to be on the hook for both people, guys. I don't. That's just me.
Right, but you would be against referring that buyer, that unrepresented buyer, to another agent?
I'm not against that. No, I've done that plenty of times. Just maybe I've just gotten lucky. They've never taken me up on it.
Okay.
Because you can't be too pushy there, right? Hey, work with another Red One agent. I'll throw your number. Then I get in the hot water by who I refer it to. But we would all be there. No, I've just that has never come up.
Okay.
I've offered it. It's just I've never been taken up on it.
All right, Les, hopefully that answers your question. I'm going to keep rolling through this document. We got a little bit more to cover, and then we're going to hop off. But if anybody has more questions, please shout it out or put it in the chat.
Justin, I'm going to let you take over completely. I hope
Okay.
the whole play was good. I've got a 7 o'clock Zoom that I've got to be on time for. Guys, if you have questions, get a hold of Justin, one of the other leaders, me. We're doing another one of these specific to buyer brokerage next Tuesday with Sheila Howe. We're covering this stuff well, and you guys are asking great questions. And the confidence level that I've seen grow in this team over the last 2 months, to me, has been outstanding. We all start with that really bad feeling. By the time we actually get there, this mountain has become the molehill that I think we all believe it truly is.
All right. Thanks a lot, Mark. We all appreciate you.
See ya.
Okay, guys, we're going to roll through the rest of this pretty quickly.
I'm
Go
not,
ahead.
I'm not the person owning this screen, am I?
No, you're not.
Okay, I won't cut anybody off.
All right. Mark's presentation was great. His deep dive on that conversation was really, really good. This is the meat and potatoes of this document here. Like we said, 3%, 5% under B, 3%, 4%. This is coming straight from Mike Hall, the suggestions there. Feel free to jump on his trainings. There's 2 left. 2.1 says that this is what's going to be paid, the amounts shown above here, unless it's negotiated otherwise in the purchase contract. So if something different is negotiated in the purchase contract, that's the only way, and it's agreed upon by both parties. That's the only way that the amounts in this listing contract can be adjusted. It says here again under 2.2, this is the 3rd or 4th time we've seen it. Seller acknowledges that offering compensation to buyer brokerage is not required. They really hammer that home on this. Cooperation policy states that it's the policy of this company to cooperate with all other brokerages unless believed not to be in the seller's best interest. Such refusals to cooperate by the brokerage must be included in the written disclosure of the brokerage policy on agency relationships. I have not run into that where we would deny cooperation. There may be an MLS to MLS thing that some people have seen out there, but it's pretty rare. The rest of this document, we got a question in the chat here. Exclusive right to, Carla says the exclusive right to sell example contract on red one has A% and B% reversed. Carla, I would check that and see the date if that is the newest. This one was updated on July 30th. That may be an older version. Go ahead.
I just pulled it up tonight. I just pulled it up tonight while we were starting.
Okay. And when I wonder when they uploaded it though. Is it brand new?
I don't know. I don't know. I'm just so far it seems to be aligned except for those 2 items that we're going through. What that's
Okay, so what you're saying is on that document, the listing portion and the buyer portion are reversed?
yes, it says 4% on number 2 for section A, item 2, it has 4%, and section B, number 2 says 5%. Just FYI, because
Okay. Gotcha. Well, I appreciate you pointing that out. And this is gonna be different for every person. It's up to you what kind of value you want to put on these situations. This is typically how I've done it in the past. Now, if you wanted to do 4 and 4, it would be it's all up to you and how you negotiate in these situations. And it's gonna probably look different for different agents as well. And I think that's probably why I started to put 4 in there earlier when Mark and I were on here, but I do encourage everybody to hop on the training with Mike Hall. We've got 2 left. I'm not exactly sure on the dates. I can look those up, but keep an eye out for that. As this document goes on, the rest of it looks pretty similar to how the old one did. You have the protection period here that states if you're towards the end of your listing agreement and it goes into contract, you've got a protection period there to get the property closed. Seller's cooperation states they're going to let you put a for sale sign in the yard. All of this is standard to the old document we have. Use of a lockbox. We're going to allow a lockbox to be on the door. The seller is going to allow for appraisers and inspectors to come see the property. They do or do not have electronic surveillance devices because it's illegal to record conversations in Ohio without the person being acknowledging that they're being recorded. We've got our lovely fair housing statement here that says we're not going to discriminate based on age, sex, religion, familial status, or anything else, race, color, anything like that. We've got our section in here that has to do with foreign buyers and sellers, and then amendments, and then our portion down here where the sellers sign. this is pretty standard as well. Again, if it were me doing the transactional fee, it would likely go here in the remarks for me. You got your contract dates, your signatures by all parties involved. And that's it for the contract, for the listing contract. The big part, the big portion, the big change takes place here on page 1 at the bottom of page 1. So if you haven't reviewed this yet, please jump on. You can load this into any loop that you have. You can hop on at any time and review it. I encourage everybody to please familiarize yourself with it. We're about 5 minutes over, so we're going to wrap it up. But I do want to leave it at this. I have signed 2 of these listing agreements, and since this has come out, I've adopted it and started using it. I've signed 2 of them in the past 2 weeks, and neither of them had any push. Neither of those listing clients had any pushback on the commission that we were offering. I explained that it's always been negotiable, that it's not a set amount, but that we want to incentivize buyers agents to bring us that offer. And in the net to seller that I send them before that, we've got the 3 and 3 baked in there already. And if they're happy with that net proceed or the estimate of those net proceeds, then they really have no reason to argue it. You will have seller clients out there that do want to discuss it. So it's very important for all of us to be ready for those conversations. I thought Mark did a great job. Hopefully you guys did as well. He's a little more long-winded than I am in those situations, but you know, we all have the opportunity to go with him on listing appointments and go with any of the leaders on listing appointments. I highly encourage you guys to, if you haven't yet, schedule to go on a showing with Mark, schedule to go on a closing with Mark, schedule to go on a listing appointment, schedule to go on, anything on the buyer side as well, because there's certain things that he does that I never did before I started with the AMP program that I adopted, and they've worked great. I think that 4 pools of money that he talks about, I think that's really, really good. So, hopefully this class was informational for you. I'm sorry we went over about 10 minutes here, but there was a lot to kind of discuss. Hopefully this was educational and valuable for you guys. If nobody has any further questions, we will wrap it up. Thank you guys for your time tonight. I'm going to download this recording, send it to Mark, and he's going to send it out via email and put it on the Facebook group page. And just real quick, we are the AMP team is launching a piece of software called Circle, where all of our documents are going to be in one place. All of our training videos are going to be in one place. All of our upcoming events are going to be in one place. There's going to be coaching on there. I'm really excited for us to roll that out. So keep your eyes open for that. Thanks guys for tuning in. Great crowd tonight. And I will talk to you guys soon. Good luck out there and get those listing agreements signed. Thanks a lot, guys.